Hi, welcome back to a brand new video of the Target Individual Program, Target Experience. So I want to show you guys how they manipulate my phone camera, particularly when they don't want me to record and show certain things. So, um, when I entered into the school with my daughter, I think it was in the video after, when I was leaving the school, you'll hear me mention this. There was a woman standing there. Now, she was just standing there, right? Walked into the school. She was just standing there. As soon as she sees me, now she goes to the security guard and now want to interact. So I started recording. The minute I opened that door, I started recording. Okay. Now as I recorded, all right, and then I ended the video. At least I thought I ended the video. I know I hit the the end button, right? But the video did not end. The video continued. All right. So I'm going to show you guys just a piece of this, just so you guys can see. What happened? Look at how the video. Right. So the video. That's my daughter right there. Let's go back right here. Show you, right. This is the woman. She's wearing red. Maybe let me slow it down a little bit here. Let me do that. I ended the video, okay? But I want you to understand what it is that they do to create a level of perception. And I'm leaving the video as it is because the school is a public place, and as a parent that has a student in that school and trying to bring certain attention to the teachers, I'm allowed to document. Okay, so they will always try to create this spin, this lie, the deception, because that's how they get away with it. And because, again, like I said, we are a very emotional people, that we don't think, and they can create whatever narrative they want to create, and they will get the Sambos and Sambinos and the Negropeans to lie and to engage in that sort of tactics, so they can weaponize them to believe whatever it is they want to believe. But again, I want you to see when I talk about them using the color red and how she's just standing there. Right there. I mean, it's not all right. So you see her, she's just standing there. Okay. Like I said, as soon as she saw me, she goes over to the security guard. And again, they're both working together. All right. The reason why they send her there is because because of what it is that they've done, probably send an adult to try to talk to my daughter or whoever, even an older teenager. It doesn't matter, right? And this is why it's important. And when you see Negropeans who are doing this, right, it shows you just how evil and rotten they are to their core. They're rotten. There's no way to put it. There's no other words to put it. They are rotten. That's why they need a shift in consciousness from a believing mindset to a mindset that knows things. Because when you understand what's being done, not only do you become more sympathetic to your people and each other, but you become more understanding. So you want to teach them, but they don't want to be taught. You want to give them some idea of sensibility and common sense, but they don't want sensibility and they don't want common sense. They want to believe. And I talk about the sadistic mindset. All right. And what is the sadistic mindset? Okay, let me give you guys a definition. All right. So, what is a sadistic mindset? Okay. A sadistic mindset is characterized by the tendency to deprive pleasure, satisfaction, or a sense of reward from the physical or emotional suffering of others. Rather than showing empathy or remorse, individuals with these traits actively seek to inflict harm, humiliate, or control others to satisfy their desires. Core traits of behavior. People with sadistic tendency often exhibit the following characteristics: pleasure from pain, gaining intrinsic enjoyment while witnessing someone else's distress or humiliation, control, and dominance, using fear, intimidation, or strict behavioral restriction to establish power over others. Lack of empathy, an inability to feel compassion for a person they are hurting, often feeling justified in their cruel action. Proactive aggression, initiating harm or conflict for sports or personal thrill, rather than as a defensive reaction. How it manifests. Sadism can range from mild everyday social behavior to extreme cruelty. Everyday sadism, cruel teasing, public humiliation, nonviolent humor, or chronic internet trolling intended to cause emotional havoc. Interpersonal relational, emotional manipulation, verbal abuse, and the intentional restriction of a partner's or child autonomy. Severe physical, unprovoked physical violence, torture, or cruelty towards animals. Clinical context. In the mental health community, sadistic personality disorder is an obsolete diagnostic term today. Today views sadism not as an isolated disorder, but as a personality trait. It is frequently studied alongside narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism as part of the dark triad personality traits. See, this is why I talk about the dark triad personality traits, because when you see the amount of people within the society who are conditioned into that mindset, okay, you get to understand why they do it. All right. In order for those at the top and those positions of power to justify their behavior, they need to create people at the bottom with the same type of behavior, with the same type of personality trait. But their behavior will only be justified in the context that if those elites or those in position of authority are able to use them to carry out their sadistic behavior and doing it through them, right? But the people at the bottom don't have the power, so they are held responsible and accountable more times than those in positions of authority. You got to understand how power dynamics work within psychopath and sociopathic personality traits, particularly the dark triad personality traits in position of authority and power. So whether it be your politicians, your law enforcement officers, the high ups within law enforcement officers, as I said, the high ups in the Predator Police Department, their Predator officers, and so forth and so forth. Even the banking system, where you have the dark triad personality traits who are at the top within the banking system. They're the executive and stuff like that, and they can give each other, $100 million bonuses while laying off thousands or hundreds of people, right? And not saying to themselves, you know what, I don't need that big of a bonus. Why not give me a half of that, or even a third of that, and that way we don't have to lay people off. But that is not their mindset. And when they trickle down this mindset within the public, like trickle down economics, it is the public that really end up hurting the most. But the public do not understand because, again, when you talk about the religious belief system and the believing mind, this is what happens, right? So let me move on to the believer's mindset. All right, so how are people with the believer's mindset, i.e. religious believers, how are they easily manipulated by those in positions of authority? Believers' mindset are often manipulated by authority figures through the exploitation of their sincere faith, deeply held moral values. A lot of them don't have deeply held moral values, understand that. Only in the context of their own interpersonal lives, right? And natural desire for spiritual growth. Again, they don't believe in spiritual growth either. I know this sounds good, but the reality is that most religious people are not deeply moral. They are not. They don't have a natural desire for spiritual growth. They have a natural desire for growth in everything that's external, not everything that is internal. Okay? And their morality is given to them only in the sense that what they read in the Bible. But in terms of how they treat each other, and other groups of people who may not believe in their religion, it is totally immoral. So there you go. All right. Leaders achieve this by weaponizing doctrine, controlling access to information, and establishing an unhealthy power dynamics. 1. Weaponizing divine authority. equating leaders' will with God's will. Leaders frequently use phrases like "God told me" to bypass rational discussion by framing their personal preferences, administrative decisions, or ego-driven demands as divine mandates. They make questioning them feel equivalent to disobeying God. Appealing to authority bias. Because believers trust that their leaders are spiritually mature, they are vulnerable to the appeal to authority fallacy, assuming the leader is automatically correct simply due to their position. Now, what is appeal to authority fallacy? Okay, and then it goes back to what? Psychological manipulation, the power of authority, propaganda, and persuasion. Now, for you, the believers, I would recommend you go and you read this. Okay. 2. Exploited emotional and spiritual vulnerabilities. Using guilt and fear. Manipulators often focus on human flaws to create an environment of shame, keeping congregants dependent on the leader for forgiveness, direction, and spiritual validation. Conditional love and belonging. Faith communities become a mesh system where a believer's worth and social connection are completely tied to obedience. Leaving the fold or disagreeing with leadership is framed as the betrayal of God, resulting in the fear of shunning or excommunication. 3. Isolated and silence and dissent. Discouraging critical thinking. Authoritarian leaders often portray the outside world or different perspective as dangerous, spiritually corrupt, or toxic. By limiting access to external viewpoint, leaders secure a monopoly on truth, bypassing accountability. Toxic leaders often surround themselves with yes men and marginalize anyone who asks tough questions. Openly disagreeing is frequently redefined as a character flaw, rebellion, or evidence of spiritual immaturity. All right, so that's again giving you an example and an explanation, a definition of what the believer's mindset does and how. Yeah, Ed, in your prayer to the department using this. Yeah, fuck you, your prayer department. You all are morally corrupt and morally, spiritually bankrupt. Giving you an explanation of how and what it is that they do, right? So with that being said, I will talk to you guys on the next video. And please, like I said, look at the information that I'm providing. Look at it. Look at the example that I'm showing you and how they will engage in false narrative and lies, right? To make it seem, try to create a false narrative about me and other TIs when they're the one that are orchestrating these things. And because they're in a position of authority, no one questioned their authority and what it is that they're doing. Okay? So when you talk about the immoral behavior of those positions of authority, we as TIs, we are showing you and giving you guys an example of these things. All right? Talk to you guys in the next video.